The look on Eleanor's face when she realized her plan had backfired was something I'll never forget. My mother-in-law stood in my grandmother's restored Victorian mansion, waving forged documents and screaming about family property, while my husband Thomas watched silently from the corner. Neither of them knew that I had discovered their scheme months ago, or that my surprise was waiting in the next room. I'm Sophia Anderson, and this is the story of how my mother-in-law's greed destroyed her own family. The house had been in my family for generations. My grandmother Elizabeth Pierce was a renowned architect who had lovingly restored the Victorian mansion to its former glory. Every detail, from the hand-carved banisters to the stained glass windows, told a story of our family's history. When she passed away last year, she left the house to me, knowing I shared her passion for historic architecture. "Take care of it, Sophia," she'd said in her final days. "This house isn't just wood and stone, it's our family's heart." I promised her I would, never imagining I'd soon be fighting to keep that promise. The trouble started 3 months after I inherited the house. My husband Thomas and I had been living in a small apartment, saving for our own place. When grandmother left me the mansion, it seemed like a dream come true. Thomas initially shared my excitement, helping me move in and talking about starting our family in such a beautiful home. Then his mother, Eleanor, came to visit. I should have known something was wrong from the moment she stepped through the door. Eleanor had always been controlling, but that day her eyes held a calculating gleam I'd never seen before. "Oh my," she breathed, turning slowly in the grand entryway. "This is magnificent. And your grandmother just gave it to you?" "She left it to me in her will," I corrected gently. "I grew up helping her restore it." Eleanor's lips tightened. "Well, isn't that convenient? Now that you're married to Thomas, I suppose this is family property." I felt a chill at her words, but brushed it off. "Would you like a tour?" As I showed her around, Eleanor's comments became increasingly pointed. "This house is much too big for just 2 people. The family could use this space for gatherings. These antiques should really stay in the family." By family, of course, she meant her family, the prestigious Walkers, who'd lost much of their wealth through her late husband's poor investments. Though she still maintained appearances, I knew Eleanor was struggling financially. That evening, after she left, Thomas was unusually quiet. "Mom thinks we should let her move in," he said finally. "She's having trouble maintaining her house, and this place has plenty of room." I stared at him. "Thomas, this is our home. Your mother has never liked me, and you know she'll try to take over." "She's family," he argued. "We can't just leave her struggling." The word family again, it would become a weapon in the months to come. I refused Eleanor's request to move in. Trying to be gentle but firm, that's when the real trouble began. First came the unexpected visits, always when Thomas was home. She'd bring old photo albums, reminiscing about the Walker family estate they'd lost, making pointed comments about how some people don't appreciate family history. Then she started accidentally leaving things at our house: clothes, personal items, even furniture. "Oh, just keep it there," she'd say. "I might need it next time I visit." Thomas saw nothing wrong with this gradual invasion. "She's just trying to be close to us," he'd say. But I noticed he never objected when his mother rearranged my grandmother's carefully curated rooms or criticized my modern touches to the historic home. The situation reached a breaking point when Eleanor showed up one Sunday morning with a moving van. "What's going on?" I demanded, blocking the doorway. "Oh, didn't Thomas tell you?" Eleanor's smile was pure poison. "We discussed it, and he agreed it makes sense for me to move in. After all, this is family property now." I turned to my husband, who suddenly found the floor fascinating. "We never discussed this," I said. "Actually," Eleanor cut in, "as the Walker family matriarch, I've been doing some research. Since you and Thomas are married, this house is technically joint property. And as his mother, I have certain rights." She pulled out a folder of documents, waving them triumphantly. My heart stopped when I saw what appeared to be property transfer papers with my signature on them. "These papers give me equal right to residency," she announced. "So, you can't stop me from moving in." I snatched the papers from her hand, my legal training kicking in. "Yes," I said. I'd kept my job as a lawyer even after inheriting the house, something Eleanor had often criticized as unfeminine. "These are forgeries," I said flatly, "and badly done ones at that." Eleanor's face flushed. "How dare you?" "Thomas, are you going to let her speak to me this way?" Thomas finally spoke, his voice weak. "Sophia, maybe we should discuss this." "There's nothing to discuss." I cut him off. "This is fraud, and you both know it. This house belongs to all of us." Eleanor screamed, her composure finally cracking. "You're just a gold digger who got lucky, Thomas. Tell her." That's when I knew. The strange phone calls Thomas had been taking in private. The missing documents from my home office. The way he'd been trying to convince me to add his name to the house deed for insurance purposes. They'd been planning this for months. "Actually," I said calmly, "I think it's time for my surprise. Would you both please follow me?" Confused, they followed me to my grandmother's study. I opened the door to reveal two people, Detective Sarah Martinez from the Fraud Division and my attorney, James Patterson. "Perfect timing," Detective Martinez said, holding up a recording device. "We got all of that." Eleanor's face went from red to white. "What is this?" "This," I said, "is what happens when you try to con a lawyer who specializes in property fraud." I turned to James, who began laying out documents. "On my grandmother's antique desk 3 months ago, Mrs. Walker approached several less than reputable individuals about creating forged property documents. Unfortunately, for her, one of those individuals was an informant for the Fraud Division." Detective Martinez picked up the narrative. "We've been building a case ever since the attempted fraud. Today is just the final piece of evidence we needed." "You set me up," Eleanor whispered. "No," I corrected her, "you set yourself up. I just made sure there were witnesses." Thomas finally found his voice. "Sophia, you can't do this. She's my mother." I turned to him, feeling oddly calm. "And I'm your wife, or did you forget that? When you were helping her plan this, I was just trying to help my family know you were trying to steal from your family. I am your family, Thomas, or at least I was." I nodded to James, who pulled out another set of papers. "These are divorce papers." "I've already filled out my part." Thomas staggered back. "Divorce? Over this?" I laughed incredulously. "You conspired with your mother to try to steal my inheritance, my grandmother's legacy. You betrayed every promise you ever made to me, and you don't even have the decency to admit it." Eleanor tried one last time. "You're overreacting. We can work this out as a family." "Stop saying that word," I snapped. "Family doesn't try to steal from each other. Family doesn't forge documents or conspire behind each other's backs. You want to know what real family means? Let me show you something." I walked to my grandmother's desk and pulled out her journal. "My grandmother wrote this the day she decided to leave me the house. Would you like to hear it?" Without waiting for an answer, I began to read. "Today I watched Sophia working on the garden restoration just as she's helped me restore every part of this house since she was a little girl. She doesn't know it yet, but this house will be hers someday, not because she's my only grandchild, but because she's the only one who truly understands that a home is more than just property. It's a repository of love, memories, and dreams. I know she'll honor those dreams and pass them on to the next generation." I closed the journal, looking at my husband and mother-in-law. "That's what family means. It's not about ownership or control. It's about honor, trust, and love. 3 things you know nothing about." Detective Martinez stepped forward. "Mrs. Walker, we'll need you to come down to the station to make a statement." "This is ridiculous." Eleanor protested. "Thomas do something." But Thomas just stood there, finally realizing the magnitude of what he'd done. "I'll have my things out by the end of the week," he said quietly. "Don't bother," I replied. "I've already packed them. They're in storage. You can collect them after you sign these." I pointed to the divorce papers as Detective Martinez led Eleanor away. I heard her still protesting about family property and rights. Thomas followed them out, leaving the divorce papers, and signed on the desk, I stood in my grandmother's study, surrounded by the history and love she'd built into every inch of this house for the first time since this nightmare began. I let myself cry, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of release, and maybe a little bit of pride. My grandmother had trusted me to protect her legacy, and I had. The aftermath was both easier and harder than I expected. Eleanor was charged with attempted fraud and forgery. She took a plea deal to avoid jail time, but the scandal destroyed what was left of her social standing. The last I heard, she had to sell her house and move in with her sister in Florida. Thomas fought the divorce, at first claiming he'd only been trying to help his mother, but when his own role in the conspiracy came to light, he quickly changed his tune. He signed the papers and moved to another state, apparently unable to face the consequences of his actions. The hardest part was dealing with mutual friends who thought I should have been more understanding about Eleanor's actions. She's still family, they'd say, echoing Thomas's words. But that's the thing about family. Real family stands up for what's right, even when it's difficult. My grandmother taught me that. I threw myself into continuing my grandmother's work on the house. Each restored piece of molding, each carefully preserved fixture, became a testament to the true meaning of family legacy. 6 months after the incident, I was working on restoring the garden when a familiar face appeared at the gate. "Miss Pierce." It was Detective Martinez. "I'm off duty, but I was in the neighborhood and thought you might like to know. Mrs. Walker's sister kicked her out. Apparently, she tried the same property scheme with her." I had to laugh. Some people never learn. "Would you like to come in for tea?" I offered. I just finished restoring my grandmother's conservatory. As we sat among the blooming flowers, Detective Martinez, Sarah, admired the work I'd done. You know, my grandmother was an architect too. She would have loved this place. That conversation led to others, and soon Sarah became a regular visitor, helping me with the restoration work. She understood what this house meant, not as property, but as a living testament to family, love, and heritage. A year later, I was surprised to receive a letter from Thomas. He'd written to apologize, saying he finally understood what he'd lost, not the house, but the trust of someone who had truly loved him. I didn't respond. Some betrayals can't be undone with words. Instead, I focused on building a new kind of family. I started a program for young architects interested in historic preservation, offering internships and workshops in my grandmother's restored workroom. The house that Eleanor had tried to claim as family property became a true family legacy, nurturing new generations of dreamers and builders. Sarah and I grew closer, our shared appreciation for history and justice blossoming into something more. When I finally showed her my grandmother's journal, she understood its value in a way Thomas never had. 2 years after the incident, we held a small wedding in the garden. My grandmother's restored gazebo, draped with the same climbing roses she'd planted decades ago, provided the perfect setting. Eleanor and Thomas weren't invited, of course. But as I stood there, promising to build a life with someone who truly understood the meaning of family, I silently thanked them. Their betrayal had taught me an invaluable lesson about the difference between those who claim family ties and those who honor them. The house stands prouder than ever now. Its restored beauty is a daily reminder that some things can't be bought, stolen, or claimed. They can only be earned through love, respect, and understanding. Last week, I found an old photo of my grandmother standing in front of the house the day she finished the initial restoration. Her smile radiates the same joy I feel every time I walk through these halls. I keep that photo in her study next to the journal she left me. Together, they tell the true story of what family means, not a legal claim or a blood tie, but a connection built on shared values, mutual trust, and unconditional love. Eleanor tried to steal my house by claiming it was family property. In doing so, she lost the only thing that really mattered, her real family. Meanwhile, I gained something far more precious than property, the knowledge that I am my grandmother's true heir, not just in name but in spirit. Sometimes, late at night, I walk through the halls of this beautiful old house, running my hands along the walls my grandmother restored and I've maintained. In those quiet moments, I can almost hear her voice reminding me that a home is more than just wood and stone. It's a testament to the love we choose to give and the family we choose to build. Epilogue. The house continues to be a source of joy and purpose. The preservation program has grown into a full-fledged foundation, helping other families protect and restore their historic homes. Sarah and I are expecting our first child, a daughter. We plan to name her Elizabeth, after my grandmother. Eleanor occasionally tries to reach out through mutual acquaintances, usually when she needs money. Thomas remarried, but divorced again after his new wife discovered him helping his mother with another property scheme. But their drama feels distant now, like a story from someone else's life. My grandmother's house has become exactly what she always wanted it to be, a home filled with love, learning, and true family values. The other day, while going through some old boxes, I found my grandmother's original blueprints for the house restoration. On the margin, she'd written a note. A house is built with hands, but a home is built with heart. She was right as always. Eleanor and Thomas never understood that. But as I watch new generations of architects and preservationists fall in love with this house, learning its stories and adding their own, I know my grandmother's legacy is secure. Because in the end, family isn't about who claims ownership. It's about who honors the trust, preserves the love, and builds the future. And that's something no forged document can ever steal.